Well, and so I actually do want to kind of pivot into the cancel culture thing because to me, what that says is that we have now cultivated a society where people do not feel like they can freely express their thoughts without bad faith actors coming in and smearing you for the purposes of their gain. And so I'm going to use it in the political arena because it's the easiest, most gross form, but it happens everywhere. So this isn't limited to politics. So let's look at the, are you familiar with the Joe Rogan controversy with the Bernie?
With Bernie?
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's really funny is, one, I don't know if it was the smartest move for the Bernie campaign to just take that segment and put it out as an ad. I do love what he said about Bernie in that segment. Was he's like, hey, you could take, and they did this exactly to him, and Joe just responded. I watched his response. But like, you can take anything that somebody says out of context and you can smear them and misrepresent them and whatever, which is exactly what they did to Joe. Okay, so we had some technical difficulties. I'm trying to record in a new way. GarageBand decided I only like 30 minutes worth of content. So in the future, I'm going to record this a little differently. But I wanted to continue it because I really like where we're going. I did not want to scrap that podcast. So let's get back into it, Jerry. Where I left everything off when it cut me off was that they misrepresented Joe Rogan, who has for sure said some controversial things, for sure been high and said some stupid shit. And when you take, his argument out of context about trans people, he was literally talking about a trans male to female who was beating the fuck out of people in fighting competitions, which does actually have physical implications and is dangerous. So without actually touching that subject, because I don't really want to get into that, Joe can defend himself, but the fact that you can be misrepresented in a way that is completely dishonest. By the way, the people smearing Joe, they're the Clinton wing, the Obama wing. They just want to defend their status quo because they know, yes, they're bad faith actors. They know that Bernie is an existential threat to their careerist ambitions and for them to move up in Washington. And if he comes in and actually shakes up the system, their whole revolving door of politicians and consultants and the political class and the entertainers and the news people and all that, it's literally a threat. Right. And he's not the only candidate that's a threat to that, but he's the one right now that's the front runner. So, they're trying to smear him in any way they can. And because the dude's consistent and, you could disagree with his policies, but you can't say he's not an honest dude and that he doesn't believe in what he stands for, right? Like it's very clear that the dude's an authentic guy.
Which is what Joe was saying.
Yes, and that's exactly the point. So the fact that these kind of things can happen, and not just in the political world, but in any other world where people, I don't love the term virtue signaling because to me it implies.
I love that term.
No, and here's the thing. I agree with the term, but what the problem is that some of the people that use it are also bad faith actors.
Yeah, and they use it as a pejorative.
Yes, and it's not necessarily always a pejorative. It really can just be that some people just really want to look righteous, or they just the same thing with your mask of trying to look like. But I'm better than you. I'm more holy than you. Alan Watts fucking talked about that all the time. The spiritual one-upmanship of like, I'm more spiritual than you, and you're,
yep.
And I'm more religious than you, and so I think that is a problem, that we're cultivating a culture that is trying to create gotcha moments with people instead of having an honest dialogue, an open discussion where we really can, if we're both being in good faith, we're going to get somewhere. Right. But if one of us is in bad faith, you're wasting your time talking to them, and everything you say is going to be turned against you, even when you might be speaking very nuanced and you might have a point about something. They're going to just be like, see, said that questionable thing without, ignoring all the context around it and ignoring what is really at the crux of it.
Yep. So cancel culture is, I've witnessed it for a while. I mean, this is beyond Twitter. Being in the comedy community, I can definitely tell you this is something that people do. It's something. It's not just a political thing. It's narcissistic behavior, to be honest. I'm not saying that the people who act that way are narcissists, but it is narcissistic behavior. At least that's what I'm going to diagnose it as. It's power hungry folks. It's people who don't believe that the power is within them and don't believe that they can stand up on their own thoughts and stand up for their own beliefs, especially when an argument of sound cause or sound judgment comes to them that they have to actually face. Instead of facing it, what they'd rather do is demonize the person saying it, or said in another way, it's what is it? Killing the messenger.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes, totally.
And so, another problem that we have with cancel culture is people like me who don't want to speak up, who don't want to say what they actually think.
For fear of the mob.
But for fear of the mob. It's Nietzsche. Nietzsche talks about this, right? That the collective has a strong hold on the individual. And because everybody wants to belong, at the end of the day, my survival is predicated on the fact that society accepts me for who I am, or at least who I present myself to be. So if we're getting down to a place that Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, whatever, Reddit, but social media,
sure,
when the loudest people are the ones that get heard, everybody starts to believe that the loudest people speaking is everyone, when in fact that's not the case. And you bring up like this political thing. It's like people don't realize that just because a blue check mark says something, it's likely not true. Like they are probably the most biased people.
They have vested interests.
They have a vested interest. They need that money,
especially in keeping the system the same.
Right.
So,
but I don't even think it's. I mean, the reason why it's happening is because people don't trust anybody anymore. And the reason why we don't trust anybody anymore is because we don't trust ourselves anymore. I mean, I just said to you a couple months ago, I feel like an asshole. It's because I don't act in good faith. I don't trust that I can say what I want without hurting your feelings. And if you do that enough times, you start to resent and you start to find scapegoats outside of yourself. And you want to talk about Washington, D.C., that place is so corrupt, so bad, that the most powerful people are probably the worst faith people.
Yes.
And
because they know they can bully, and they know how messaging works, and they know how propaganda works.
Right.
And so you got the Neera Tandons of the world. Oh my God.
The who?
Neera Tandon. She is the head of the Center for American Progress, which is not progressive, but
is it a left wing?
It's a corporate. It was supposed to be a left wing thing, but it's corporate. It's pro Hillary Clinton. It's pro
neoliberal.
It's neoliberal.
Yeah.
And so Neera Tandon is the worst faith actor on the left. I'm going to go out and say it. Like, between her and Hillary, they're kind of tied.
Yeah.
Neera Tandon literally punched Faiz. Is it Shakur? I'm trying to remember his last name. But he is like one of the campaign managers. I think he's like the head campaign manager for Bernie. And she literally punched him in public because of an email exchange. This email was leaked, by the way, from the WikiLeaks thing. So, but like punched him because he said, like, I don't think it's a good idea for us to try to make money off of getting into these wars, because she was saying that we should just take the oil because, you know, it's for our inconvenience of being there or something like that. And it's like, do you not see the negative feedback loop of that? And then I think he like called out Hillary Clinton on something, and then she went and punched him for it. And it's like, that's crazy to me already. But on Twitter, she always, in bad faith, goes against all the progressives on Twitter. And I mean, the progressives, like, not the trying to be more woke than you progressives, the one who really believe in like certain things and they stand for them and they're consistent. The people who are logically consistent. I think that good faith actors, right? There's bad faith woke leftists, and then there's good faith woke leftists, but not like, not like trying to be woker than you, literally just being like, hey, based on the facts, this is kind of what the deal is. And based on my belief system, which I've been consistent and honest about, this doesn't make sense or whatever.
Yeah.
Those exist.
Those people I love.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I could have a conversation with them.
Yes. Like the Michael Brooks of the world, some people would say Sam Cedar can be condescending, but to me, he's at least logically consistent.
Kyle
Kalinske, I think is awesome. I think he's one of my favorites. I disagree
with him on a lot of things, but yeah.
But he's one of my favorites from the standpoint of the dude's honest. He tells you what his bias is up front, and you get what you know. Like you see it for what it is, and like you said, you can disagree with him, but you at least know he's an honest, good faith actor. And if you wanted to have a debate with him, he would have a debate with you, and he would be like, "I'm going to come from a real standpoint and not try to get gotcha moments or try to, use the Twitter mob or whatever."
So this is what's coming up for me. The Kyle Kalinskis of the world, the Tim Pools. Tim Pool is my dude. I love Tim Pool. I don't know if you know Tim Pool.
I know who Tim Pool is. I have mixed feelings on him.
Oh, that's interesting. We can talk about that later. Yeah.
Because sometimes he's just factually wrong on things, but I understand where he comes from. Like, I do feel like he's got a consistent point of view.
He has a very consistent point of view.
Sometimes he goes too hard against the woke leftist people who are bad faiths people, because to me that's not representative of most people I've met. But
but what I appreciate about him is because he calls out those bad faith actors that nobody else wants to. Nobody else is calling them. Nobody on the left, at least.
Kyle Kalinske would, and Michael Brooks would, and Crystal Ball, all of them totally do.
Crystal Ball is great.
Dude, Crystal Ball is awesome. I love her.
She just showed up on my radar. I'm like, yo, Crystal Ball.
On her radar, funny enough. That's her segments.
Anyways, back to cancel culture. So that's to me that's the macro level. But what that does on a more micro level, on a face to face, it causes a huge problem. Because most people, the people we have dinners with, the people that we have coffee with, and this any other, are more than likely listening to the bad faith actors than they are to the good faith actors.
Because they have the money and power.
Because they have the money and power. It's not even about the money, because you have like people who work for Vox News who keep pumping out a bunch of stuff that's BS. You have people who work for what do you call that publication? Like New York Times, even.
Dude, they endorse two candidates who are diametrically opposed, technically.
It's awful.
And not to mention, Elizabeth Warren isn't even as progressive as people try to say she is. Yeah,
bro,
that's a whole. I'll go down that rabbit hole.
But that's the problem with cancel culture. No one knows what's true anymore.
Yeah.
All we know is, the colloquialism. I can't pronounce it. The
colloquialism.
Thank you. Is that the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right?
Yes.
And that's what's happening right now. Most of America doesn't give a crap about cancel culture. They just want to go about their day. Most of America doesn't even know what's happening on Twitter, but Twitter is what is
reported on.
Dude,
they'll literally take one tweet and make it a story, even though it's like it was a tweet and like maybe 7,000 people liked it.
And people wonder how Trump got elected. And so because it's like
they focus on the wrong things.
They're focusing on the wrong thing, and he knew that. And whenever I tell people, my friends, I'm on the left. I'm left to center. When I tell people, yo, the reason why he won is because y'all keep listening to the wrong people.
Yes.
Hillary Clinton called Tulsi Gabbard a Russian asset. I'm like, how many times do you have to say the sky is falling before people are going to be like,
I don't believe it anymore.
And now she's trying to say Bernie is an asset. Which now that
she's a bad faith actor on another level.
God,
she called him a career politician.
Dude, the stuff, and that's another thing.
What?
The people who are bad, if you just open your eyes, the bad faith actors tell you actually how they view the world. Why? Because they project and they can't help it.
Yep.
They cannot help it.
Because they don't know themselves.
They don't. Hillary's book, I know this is gonna upset a lot of people. But
if you're upsetting Hillary Clinton people, I don't care. They're not part of my family.
I have a lot of friends that are with her. I'm like, do you know how many other hers ran in that election? Why does it have to be her? Anyways,
yeah.
What I was trying to say is that
you're not going to get any disagreements from me on that.
In her book, she did not take any responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And it
was everyone else's fault.
Not everybody.
Bernie, who campaigned for her for 42 rallies, went in states that she never even visited and yet didn't work hard enough for her.
Right.
And she said because, he held off on endorsing me, like you did with Obama.
Right.
Like, that's where it's like she's such a bad faith actor. It's like, dude, if we're actually comparing apples to apples here, you were way worse. She only supported, I think, like 8 or 9 rallies for Obama in 2008.
Right.
And she hated him. And then she put out like that picture of Obama wearing a turban and like, you know what I mean? Like she did a bunch of things that were just so low and gross. And by the way, I'm not a huge fan of Obama anyway. I'm just pointing it out.
And the reason why this perpetuates is because of this cancel culture. Mm-hmm. Because people are afraid of actually speaking up. Because if enough people actually said something, it wouldn't fly. Mm-hmm. It just wouldn't fly. And the problem is most people don't even realize cancel culture is happening. That's the thing. Because if people realize that cancel culture is happening, well, maybe the people, I don't know.
I think people are aware of it.
Here in Chicago, I am friends with people that have done cancel culture to local businesses. Because, because, you know, the owner of the shop happened to have supported a certain politician, or an owner of a shop doesn't really fall in line with the progressive leftist ideology and stuff like that. And so they rally everybody. They post on Facebook and this and the other about how terrible this person is. Oh, I knew I should have never gone into that place. Like, get the out of here.
Are they providing a good service? Are they hurting the community? That's really matters.
Yeah. Or, okay, just stop going.
Yeah.
Like you don't. Another example is there's somebody that I'm friends with someone who's I'm friends with a Proud Boy.
What?
Yeah.
That's wild.
I'm friends with somebody who's a Proud Boy. We did comedy together back in the day. And dude's hilarious. He's hilarious. Mm-hmm. And he's a Proud Boy. And someone got on my messenger and messaged me and was like, Jerry, can you believe that so-and-so is a Proud Boy? And I was just like, yeah, I know. And they were like, oh, and you can allow for something like that? And I was like, I mean, he's not doing it. What do you want me to do? He's like, you just need to stop following him and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, why? He's not doing anything. Mm-hmm. In actuality, if you actually get to know him and you actually get to know him and his friends, you might realize that he's actually just a normal guy who hangs out with a bunch of bravado guys that have their own ideology just like you do. Mm-hmm. Like, they're not evil. They're not bad. They just want to stand up for what they believe in. Mm-hmm. I brought that up to her, and she couldn't handle it. And she was like, that's it. We're not friends anymore on Facebook. She canceled me. That's my point.
Yeah.
Why should I fall in line with people who think the other side, the people who disagree with them, are inherently evil? I'm not down with that.
No, that doesn't work.
My friend, he doesn't think that way. He thinks she's an idiot. He thinks that people on my side of the aisle are idiots, but he'll at least have a conversation with me. He's not alt-right. He's not white supremacist. In fact, he's dating a Hispanic girl. Mm-hmm. So it's like, and some of his friends are Hispanic. He has black friends that are Proud Boys. But the people who are so self-righteous, so know that they are correct, they won't even give it a second thought.
They won't engage. Well, because here's the thing. I do think that there are some people who they won't sit down with you, and those people are bad faith actors.
Right.
And I think, don't engage with them.
Right.
But because it's a waste of your time and it's a waste of your energy. So like I've had, I post political posts on Facebook and stuff. And I post on Instagram, and I know I piss off a lot of people. I've had my own sister unfollow me, But that being said, if people are willing to have a civil discourse with me, I'm willing to have the conversation.
Right.
The second it becomes like I can tell that they're not being genuine, or that they just go, but Venezuela. Or like, you know what I mean? Like those people.
But my Venezuela.
But Venezuela, socialism, bad. Like without any nuance of like, yeah, dude, we're not talking about socialism, the entire economy. We're talking about just healthcare and education, which is something we already do up to K through 12. Why not extend it to to 16? Certain things like that where it's like, if you're not willing to even have that discussion with me, then I might unfollow you because it's literally a waste of time and you're just trolling my posts. So I have deleted people because they were literally bad faith actors. I would present them with evidence and numbers, and then they'd ignore that and then bring up something else and change and move the goalpost. You know, those people aren't worth your time. But if somebody's willing to have a dialogue with you and somebody's willing to engage with you, then I think you should try to. And I recently listened to that Joe Rogan episode where he had on Daryl. I can't remember his last name. He's the guy who converted a bunch of people from the KKK.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Amazing story. And talk about like people who you would think are irredeemable, right? KKK members. You'd think these people are the fucking worst of all time. And all he did was just engage them honestly. And it's not that he didn't push back on their ideas. He totally did. But over time, he broke down that barrier and kind of just through example showed like clearly your views of black people are wrong and are based on nonsense.
Yeah. Right.
Over time, they then gave it up. Some of them were like grand dragons, and I'm not going to get into the hierarchy of it because I don't even remember all of that. But he had people that straight up disbanded their entire little local KKK clan.
Right.
So, clearly people are more redeemable than you think.
Exactly.
But there are definitely still some percentage of people that are like, dude, just don't waste your time. I think you gotta pick your battles. If they're willing to talk to you.
Yes, pick your battles. And in this case, he picked his battle.
Yeah.
He did pick his battle, right?